welcome to another episode of Pod Leaders. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have the lovely Veronica joining us today, Veronica Hull, who has got quite the career to run through with us today. So thank you so much for joining us, Veronica. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. It's been really nice preparing for today, just thinking about where I've been and what I've done. So looking forward to chatting.
Well, that's all the good stuff that we really want to run through today. So Pod Leaders really focuses on leaders of industry, just finding out the twists and turns that careers have and different decisions and how we came to be sat in the seats that we are today. And all of our listeners are really interested then to finally sum up on what your thoughts are of where we're going to be. And especially as somebody that's so into change and transformation, I'm really excited to hear some of those points. So first and foremost, obviously, you have, I keep saying obviously, I do apologise. You've had an extensive career in the airline industry. Let's just do a little walkthrough of some of the key points of that and how we are sat here today.
Of course, I mean, as I say, when I was preparing for today, it was really nice just to think about, been in the industry for almost 20 years, more than 20 years. So I've been through a lot for sure. And actually, joining the aviation industry started for me a lot longer than I thought about thinking about which job I was going to do. It came from watching TV, in fact. So back in let's say the 90s, there was a lot of airport and airline television shows. I don't know if you remember them. There
There was
was
that EasyJet one.
the
I love that
EasyJet
guy.
with the legendary Jane Bolton, but also
Yeah.
Jeremy Spake at Airport at the BBC. And
Right.
I absolutely loved these programs every week. I would watch them and I
Yeah.
was completely fascinated by the airport and the complexities that were happening behind the scenes. For me personally, all I wanted was a walkie-talkie and be able to wander around the airport doing very important business, and seeing how it all worked.
Yeah.
And then I was super lucky. My family are very much avid travelers,
Oh, great.
and they loved a family holiday in Cornwall, but as equally loved their holidays in Spain and Disney and all those different things. So as I was growing up, traveling and going to airports just was part of my DNA. So I went to Disney, and it really cemented to me what I wanted to be involved in. And in fact, I remember really clearly a moment at school when you have that careers advisor talk and they're trying to work out what GCSEs you should do and what's your future going to hold. And so the advisor asked me, what did I want to be when I grew up? And I said, holidays. It was,
Broad.
yeah,
All of it.
just holidays, i.e., be somewhere you want to be long
Yeah.
term. So I thought about it more from a passion perspective than an actual specific role.
Yeah.
And so with that kind of in mind, and sometimes having that single focus makes things really easy. So having that mission that I wanted to spend time traveling and seeing the world, it steered my degree, it steered what I focused on, and it got me to where I am now. I did a tourism degree in Bristol.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, yeah.
And in that time, it was back then when you had to do a year in industry. So my first job in the business, let's say, was a placement year at British Airways, and
Amazing.
it was in the engineering department. So I would not even thinking about it now, it's so strange to me, but it was so incredible to be so close to the aircraft.
Yeah.
I was working on Concorde. I was kind of in that golden age of aviation.
Yeah.
Everything was still reasonably new. The low cost carriers were still kind of creating a little bit of buzz. And I just felt like this is where I needed to be, just with those big planes, and understanding how the business worked from the inside out. I also spent a little time on languages, not as much as I probably should have now that I live in Spain. Um, but I studied some languages as well, which again is also part of my uh, DNA in terms of wanting to work in and outside of the UK.
Yeah.
Um, I think I graduated from uni in 2002, so actually not the best time to join the industry. It was right after 9/11. In fact, I was working at BA during that time.
Oh,
So despite the kind of shock that the industry was going into, I was suitably determined, and I just was waiting and waiting to find a role to join an airline. And I was super lucky that I began my career post university at Virgin Atlantic in 2004. And that was a hugely rewarding chapter of my life. I'm almost 18 years. I was able to do many different roles there, because of the way the business was working, and it was all about kind of moving around and learning the business from the inside out. I look at that time, and it's, to me, I call it my apprenticeship, because I was able to try my hand at absolutely anything, from technology
Yes.
to transformation, marketing, revenue management, loyalty, essentially all of the disciplines within an airline. And it was absolutely fantastic. The culture there is great. And I'm incredibly lucky that I was able to spend as long as I did there. Everyone was encouraged to move around, and it was a place really for aviation enthusiasts to kind of cut their teeth. And
That's so amazing.
it, yeah, fantastic for me. Really, really enjoyed that time. So that takes me from 2004, multiple roles in the business, to just before the pandemic, so around 2019, and I worked in so many different departments. I put all that together and ended up in transformation, because one of the things you know about airlines is it's very rare that you can make a change in one part of the business and it not impact another.
Mm,
So essentially, that innate understanding of how all the pieces work together that I had gathered over that time and all the different roles that I had taken on had meant that I was in a place where transformation was a natural next step, because I had that holistic 360 view.
mm,
So moving into technology in 2019 was kind of the pinnacle of my, as I say, the apprenticeship that I took on in terms of all the roles that I had done there. And then everything changed. Everything changed, and from a transformation perspective, it's it was an exciting time to be there. In a place where everything is happening all at the same time.
mm,
But it was a lot of, um, for me, it definitely gave me a perspective that I needed to think about doing something completely new. Having
mm,
been through that process, and having that lovely squiggly career I just described, it gave me so much knowledge, and now it made me sort of think, well, where do I really want to be?
mm.
And what should I do next? So, after 18 years of working across many disciplines at Virgin Atlantic, I what I describe, and when I talk to a lot of people, it's the ultimate transformation. I
Okay.
tr-
Oh, I
uh,
love that. Yeah.
I transferred myself from everything I knew to moving to somewhere I didn't, to a language I didn't speak, into a location that I'd never been, and
Wonderful.
moved to Spain. And so for me personally, that was a huge leap of faith,
Yeah.
but also provided me an opportunity to see kind of where I was at, and support delivery of one of the best pieces of work and things that I've worked on in my career. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of these things later.
Absolutely.
So I moved to Welling in 2022,
Hmm.
and have been there for almost 3 years, working on
Mm,
their transformation and building those foundations, for successful continuous improvement. And I'm
mm,
delighted that they made such huge improvements. You can see it in the results of IAG. They've made excellent progress.
mm.
And so one of the things that you can find in transformation is that you're building the foundations for long term.
Yeah.
And as a transformation person, you're kind of like the business's personal trainer in some ways. And once you've given the skills to the teams to be able to do it on their own, um, it makes sense to think about where to go next, and do those transformations. So
Mm,
I'm just now about to start my own venture around project management and program management, and just continuing to drive change and drive transformational results. So I'm super excited for the next step, which is essentially culminating all of that experience into providing opportunities to help other businesses thrive and transform. And especially with what's going on right now, there's going to be so much we need to do in the industry. So I'm stepping up to that challenge.
feels like one of those moments in history, doesn't it, in the aviation world at the moment? That's a bit of a crossroads of embracing change, and that's where your skill set is so important and vital. So, and just that part at the end, would that be involved within like a consultancy offering?
Yeah, so I'm actually launching my own group,
Love it.
called
Is
the
this the
30%
30%?
group, the 30% group,
Great.
exactly. So, as you would know, 70% of transformations fail. That's kind of a statistic that's banded around, not just by me, but McKinsey and lots of
Just
other
yeah.
big consultancy houses. And so, my idea is that if you work through the 30% group, will help you make sure that you're in that 30% by able to deliver transformation that's actually going to stick. And for
Absolutely.
me, that's led completely by the people. Tools
Mm,
and processes and technology will get you so far, but
mm,
transformation really works when
mm.
the people are involved and they're fully supporting it.
And putting change into place that isn't support is the cause of all failure, right? So yeah, just
Exactly.
getting people's input and maybe making changes to align with needs, all of that kind of thing.
Exactly. And just ensuring everybody's involved. It's super
Yeah,
important, regardless of the change that you're doing, whether it's positive, negative, crisis led, something like
mm,
a COVID-19 response versus
yeah,
something what you're doing to drive growth. It's really critical that you include the people that understand the business the best. And often that's the front line. And specifically in airlines, they're often the furthest away from those decisions. So it's really important to ensure
absolutely.
everybody is involved.
It's been a running theme with some pod leaders guests, which has been great. Airlines are naturally safety focused, very operationally led, change and actually just finding a differentiation from competitors can be quite difficult, and
Exactly.
scary. So, all of this modern retailing and all of the new things that are coming into the market at the moment, especially from the suppliers and the service providers, it's really exciting times. There's going to be a lot of demand for you, Veronica. I know it. It's
I
going to
hope
be
so.
exciting.
I hope so.
So through the career, obviously, there's been some real personal peaks there with moving to Spain and that really big chunk of work with Virgin Atlantic. I've come across so many people, a bit like British Airways, that like you can kind of be termed as a lifer if you're over 10 years, I think, with any business. So
Absolutely.
that really breeds that, and that shows really positive things for the internal culture of both businesses, that they keep people so long, which is great. With all of this come some challenges and challenging moments within your time within the environment. I think it's always really healthy to remind people that things aren't always rainbows and sunshine. So how tell us about some challenging bits and how you managed to work your way through them.
It's such a great question. And I also talk about this with a lot of my friends and family, and they're like, "Why are you still working in aviation?" I said, "Well, I don't know any business where you could open the newspaper and anything that's covered on the front page would have an impact on
Oh
the day
yeah.
to day. But aviation, I mean, having been here since the 2000s, I've gone through it all, I think.
Mm,
9/11 to SARS to ash clouds to financial crisis, obviously COVID, and even what's happening right now, the kind of Trump effect and the impact that
yeah.
has on just trade and how everything is going to kind of shake out. But for me personally, I think dealing with the crisis of COVID-19 was one of the most unprecedented times for the industry, the huge disruption it had, and the specifically for the business and having to adapt and do it quickly was
Mm,
something that as a transformation person, you would look back and be like, I'm super proud of the way that we responded at the time. I can look at that now, 5 years down the line with that perspective. But from my side of things, I was responsible for supporting the transformation portfolio. So, if you can imagine, just before the crisis, we just started doing the annual planning for 2020. We just kicked off a load of projects and had a huge amount of improvements that we were planning to do. Overnight, the brief came in. We have to think about how we're going to protect this business and get through this crisis.
mm,
And so we had to take an original set of amazing priorities, excellent work that all the team had planned and prepared to do, and flip the entire portfolio around and deliver a lot of new initiatives, some of them much more dramatic in terms of how they were going to support the business and completely change everything overnight. So if you imagine, we're stopping fleet programs, we're changing offices, we're having to think about how to include testing and deal with all of the new requirements for opening the borders. All of this were things that had been never done before. And as part of the technology leadership team, we were critical in trying to find those solutions, get things up and running, get prototypes out there to test how we could, new boarding procedures, all this different stuff. So there was always a lot of work happening in the transformation office during that
yeah.
period. And it was, like I say, you look back at it now thinking that was amazing that we went through that. It demanded intense and constant collaboration and ensuring
Mm,
that decisions were really understood, rapidly cascaded, and action was taken as necessary as quickly as we could. And also maintaining that priority, as you said already, that safety above all costs,
absolutely.
and trying to make sure that we could essentially maintain the business to where they are now. And I saw the results of Virgin Atlantic this year, and they've just returned back to profitability. And
Brilliant.
actually, for me, that's the phoenix that was always going to be coming. And I just think the activity that we took during that year, 2 years while we were protecting the business
Yeah.
is up there with one of the most important things I've done in my career.
It's been integral, hasn't it? At the same time, within that, we were all working in an environment that, excuse me, in an environment that we didn't know how long it was. Like an initial 6 weeks, we didn't know how long it was going to be for. In an environment where the people that you're working, collaborating with, are scared, right? We're scared for our families. We don't know what's going on. Excuse me. So the base of it is that we're trying to enact change to enable people to be safe, but you naturally within any business planning during that time, we're going to worst case scenario planning,
Hmm.
and all of that will incite really difficult responses from a human.
Absolutely. And that's why when we think about transformation, change management, you have to remember there's a person
Yeah.
at the end of it. And so as much as the planning that we could do was as sensitive as we could make it, we had to make
Yeah.
huge different decisions. We had to take some really difficult decisions. And in the face of having to do that through a screen and losing that ability to connect on that, face to face level was really tough.
Just give
Um,
everyone a cuddle sometimes, isn't it?
we
Just
did different things. We were working and we sent everybody Kit Kats and tea bags and telling people to
brilliant.
take a break. And obviously, you guys know we did virtual sessions as much as we could, but it wasn't the same until we kind of got
Yeah.
back into the office and were able to really look back and be like, we got through that actually.
Yeah.
And we've got through it in a way that's providing the resilience to be stronger going forward as well. There was great sort of high spots, despite the challenges, high
Yeah.
spots of improvements. There's nothing more um, change sort of driving than having a common goal. And
Absolutely.
when you're planning any type of change, whatever it might be, there's always that clarity of
Yeah.
needing to know what everyone's going for, everyone going in the same direction. And that
Mm.
created that environment. I wouldn't recommend
No,
that's the
not
best
to be
way to
repeated.
operate for change
Yeah.
management. Is there a way to do that without the crisis and without that burning platform? Of course. But
Yeah.
as I say, as a change person responding to a crisis of that nature, I don't think it gets any bigger.
What a time, absolutely. And that kind of really brings me on to my next question, which might be the same answer to be honest, but I'd love to learn about something that you loved working on. And I know it's you know, well, yeah, no, you go.
I think,
Why did
I
you love
mean,
working on?
like you said, there was so much else happening
Mm,
whilst the transformation was going on under COVID. I mean, as I say, opportunity to do things that I imagine in most people's lifetimes you don't get to do. But it still had that backdrop of
mm.
kind of crisis. It still had, as you said, all the concerns people had around safety, family. I mean, my parents are actually based in Florida, so I didn't see them for 3 or 4 years
Well, that's
because
horrid in
the
itself, but
US
yeah.
was, we're all based in different places, we're on Zoom and all those different
Mm.
things. But in terms of, so I was going to go with something a bit more positive
Yeah.
for
No,
this
please
one.
do, please do.
And I still love this program as I talk about it today. So
Yeah,
one of the first things that I did when I joined Vueling, so Vueling had, like all airlines and like most businesses, they have a transformation program. They have a plan to achieve improvements, and they kind of were kicking off the phase of delivery of that as kind of their post-COVID recovery. And the first thing that I was asked to launch when I was there is a way to connect the front line to that story. Because again, everybody was working at home. They were working, some people were working, some people weren't working. So you had that kind of different level of understanding across the
yeah,
business. And one of the things you need in transformation is that clear clarity and vision. So I was asked to come up with a way to connect that vision that they had for Vueling and how they were going to improve to the front line. And for Vueling as a low cost carrier, that's not just the pilots, the cabin crew, the people at the airport. That's all of the supporting businesses and the people that help make it work as well. So I launched a program called Make It Better. And actually, this is very intrinsically linked to the Vueling culture and strategy. And it's all about that kind of continuous improvement mindset. So if you see something that's not working quite well, just make
yeah,
it better.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you make it better a little bit today, a little bit more tomorrow, and you
Mm,
just continue to improve things. So it wasn't about tech necessarily. I mean, there were some solutions that came from Make It Better that were tech dependent, but actually it was about culture and empowerment. And that for me
mm,
was, as I said at the start of this, super important for change to work and for change to
Mm.
stick. Um,
Mm.
I loved it because it was so genuine as a
Yeah.
program. And actually, even when we get on board sometimes and see the cabin crew, they ask, "Oh, what do you do at Vueling?" And you try and explain transformation, you try and explain all these different things, and they're like, "Not really sure." And then you say, "Oh, we launched Make It Better." They're like, "Oh, you're the Make It Better people." And so to have that recognition, to have that complete
Yeah.
understanding is great. So the way that the program works, it's not rocket science. It is just essentially giving everyone in your organization a voice. We had a digital platform that allowed people to submit their ideas. We ran kind of quarterly challenges, and the challenges were linked to the top priorities of the company, and in some ways linked to essentially the overall company goals. And we just asked everyone, what would
Yeah.
how might you improve X? How might you do something else to, take 5 minutes off the term?
Yeah.
And we got so many different ideas come through, a huge number of them. I mean, our idea quality, so this is the score we used to give ourselves of how many ideas and how many would we actually take forward, was something like 15%, because everybody was so engaged in the program.
Love it.
We had huge improvement in OHI. I think it's something like 24 points in improvement in some of the most, I suppose, detractor style departments.
Yeah.
We identified EBIT, obviously, improvements, which is great because you always need to be able to wash your face in an airline in terms of
Absolutely.
investment versus what you deliver. But the reason why I love the program so much is it fosters that culture of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
You just think about the name, make it better. It's very simple, it's very
Absolutely.
straightforward, and it creates that environment where people can be curious and they can feel they can
Yeah.
genuinely contribute. One of the best things about the program was that everybody who submitted an idea got a response, whether it was
Yeah.
your ideas moving to the next stage or why it wasn't moving to the next stage. And so every interaction in that program was an opportunity to educate what the
That's really
business
good.
strategy was. So even the ideas that were either not right now or not ready because of XYZ, it was an opportunity for us to help explain to the business at large why things were great and why things needed to be done in a slightly different way.
Absolutely.
And leaving that as my legacy there is one of the proudest things
That's
I've done.
wonderful. Do you have a particular idea that's stuck with you that you thought, why didn't we think of that? Or was there something?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. I mean, we've had a really straightforward idea come through the pilots and the teams about how they needed to be able to calculate their paths. They needed like a tool. It was probably something like 60,000 or something investment. We put that in and saved them immediately 2 million on the flight plans. So there's been
Wonderful
ideas that have
pilot.
delivered, the big benefits, and then just
Yeah.
the simple, nice ones that one of my ideas that went through was to do with the clocks in the OCC. So we have all these clocks with all the different times, and they were slightly out of sync, like
Oh,
a couple of seconds, not a huge amount of time.
yeah.
But the team were like, we just need these clocks fixed. um, and they put it through Make It Better. We made it happen. We
Oh,
had an
wow.
amazing group of boosters. So what we did to make sure that the ideas were being heard and understood by every department is we had a individual representing every part of the company. So if you can imagine, we've taken the whole of Welling and distilled it down into these 20 people. We've got cabin crew people from Orly, people from Italy, we've got engineers, we've got pilots, and we bring them together every quarter to talk about the next challenge and the next idea, and we take their feedback on. So sometimes we might say, we're thinking about doing this question. Does this make sense? How would you do it? And just that full collaboration end to end just has been creating sort of spin off
Mm,
Make It Betters in the different departments. Because once they saw how it was going to work,
yeah.
they were able to think about how they could do that on their day to day without even needing the program. The
Mm,
program's kind of there as the overarching brand, if you like, but the spirit
mm.
is what we wanted to leave, and defining that complete cultural change. A huge passion project for me, and something that I'm going to take forward into the new business.
I love it. And really positive. There's so much transformation that has happened over the last 5 years that have been really dealing with difficult situations. And everything about that project is positive. And I think that's just really just improvement focused. So that's
Exactly.
it's
And it
made
just
me
opens up all of the channels of communication between, what I used to love looking at is all the comments. So people would put an idea in, and then a pilot would put a comment in, and then an airport person would say, but that could work if you did this differently. And it's just that opening up the
Absolutely.
transparency across the business,
And
which
engagement. Love
is
that. That people were
is
actually doing
phenomenal.
it.
Yeah, almost. And most of the people engaging in the program are in our operations teams,
Mm.
and they're the guys that are the closest to I guess, the customer in terms of how things are working.
Yeah.
And so to give them the opportunity to get their idea viewed and seen at the very highest level, the CEO is in the program looking at the ideas. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. So, what a journey! Amazing. We've had some peaks, we've had some troughs, but you are on a grand world tour at the moment, traveling around,
Uh-huh.
seeing some faces, going and learning new things. And I love the conference season in the airline world.
Yeah,
There's new things being announced all the time. It's just fun. It's really, and we're a people business. We're a customer focused business. This is when we come into our own. From the bottom up all the way through. Really, really great engagement for people. So there's some trends that are changing in the industry, in the world as we see it, and our beloved airline industry, right from customer focus through to operational change, which 30% Club can definitely help with anything
absolutely.
moving forward. Um, what kind of big trends do you see highlighted, and yeah, where do you see it all going?
It's really interesting. So one of my roles I held at Virgin Atlantic was in distribution. I was around those times of sort of 2011, 2012 when NDC was becoming
Yeah.
ubiquitous, and people were talking about how they were going to transform distribution. And I think that still is the case. We need to be able to sell our products in the right places to the right people and explain what we have, and
Yeah.
being able to get our content to the people in the right places. But of course, there is this underlying current now, and it's definitely picked up pace since I was last at the mega event regarding modern retailing and this shift to order.
Mm.
And we are talking about it like it's the biggest thing in the world and like no one's ever done it before. But in the end, it's how every other business is actually operating.
Yeah.
So for us, it feels huge, but it's one of the things that we can take on, that we can learn from other businesses, right?
Mm.
So if with that in mind, that should give us some confidence to be able to understand. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for aviation, of course not,
Mm.
but we've got a path that we can tread that has been worn and tread by many other businesses. And I think we need to be there because that's what our customers are now going to expect. They want the
Mm.
same level of personalization that they get on their Netflix, through their banking, on one of the new banking apps. Their favorite e-commerce sites know the offers. They make it very easy and sticky for them to buy. Everything is simple. You can, cancel, change, add things. It has to be intuitive. And so the customers are already showing us what they want through how they interact with other businesses. So
Mm.
from an aviation perspective, in order to make sure we're still serving that primary person, which is our customers, we need to put ourselves in a position to make that sustainable and easy to achieve. So for me, I see that shift slow trickle. As I was talking at the event yesterday at
Yeah.
Dublin, was about we need revolution, not iteration on this. We have to be bold as businesses and really push towards that shift that is out there, and being done well in other places.
Look outside the internal borders, which really rings true in recruitment. And I love being an airline specialist. There's nothing better than I love than to, as natural attrition happens and movement within the industry happens, to assist and help that. But actually looking outside of skill set, looking outside of market, is really important to bring in some leadership who have been there, done it, got the t-shirt, especially with retail background, who can really
Absolutely,
try and align the central targets together.
absolutely. I think
Mm.
there's just so much about how we need to solve the problems in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's not to say how we operate right now has what is innately wrong or bad. There's no shade on what we've done in the past, but what we need going forward needs to be
Mm,
different, and we need that mindset to be different. And that's also why I love working in transformation, and kind of moving around and doing it in different places is where
mm,
you get the insight of how to be truly transformational. After a while, if you're continuing to do something in the same place at the same with the same people, you lose that edge of what if we changed it completely.
mm,
And so I think that's something that, with everything that's happening, not just the kind of drive towards modern retailing, but equally the fourth epoch that we're in right now of the AI revolution,
mm.
it needs that different perspective, and really thinking about what if or not why not.
Absolutely. So heard it here. New trends. It's happening. Just need to be
Absolutely.
open to it.
Exactly.
Have the ability to see what's coming. Um, so we've got some change happening. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be really interesting, as we always say every decade. I'm sure within this world. Um, the industry is excited at the moment. I really feel a buzz from everyone that a positive change is coming. Um, Change does sometimes come with an expense, but there seems to be new, smaller players coming into the market, taking over from the top 3 or 4 providers that we've always had, challenging things that will provide active and cheaper options for companies to try things out before really investing, really
Hmm.
positive, good stuff. So, do you have a particular vision over the next 10 years of what expectations will look like and perhaps what some strategy might change?
I think it's a great question, and I've thinking about it in terms of how businesses should respond. I think
Mm,
there's a big piece for aviation around sustainability. It's not just an
yeah.
opportunity for people to kind of print it on their boarding passes and things like that. It has to be really fully addressed to understand how they're going to improve,
Mm,
and take that investment in staff, and also think about the fleet modernization process as well.
mm,
But beyond sustainability, it's also about, I think, the way that our business is.
mm,
So just thinking about how we can lean into diversity, improve some of the metrics around some of the stats. I heard some think the other day that, especially in the UK, to kind of achieve parity, from a gender perspective in aviation, it will take 135 years, based at the pace of change that we're
that
going.
does not surprise me at all. Yeah,
And so for me,
terrifying.
that's a huge opportunity and a huge area for us
Yeah.
to tap into. Um, I think that there is going to be that lead in to much more customer centric, even more than we're doing already. And that's not
Mm,
just, um, you know, having branded fares or having a few ancillaries that we can kind of, determine who's the best person to sell those products to. But
mm,
customers are going to expect that hyper personalization, and we need to be there with those tailored offers, and not just a couple of tailored offers. They need to be fully understood. The experience I get when I've browsed a couple of things on Instagram and then I naturally see the adverts and then I'm almost already buying. That
yeah,
needs to become something that is very natural in an aviation
yeah, absolutely.
buying path. But equally, the service recovery on that side also needs to be much more proactive. Customers aren't going to be used to just getting a meal voucher at the airport and having to queue for it. It needs to be much more in the hand, in the pocket. We've already identified that there could be a problem, and being much more um, proactive
Yeah.
versus reactive, because that's again what they expect, because they're getting it in every other interaction, any other brand that they're in. So aviation needs to kind of step up and be in that place. And like you said already, historically the barriers to that have been technology. We're in
Yeah.
a very intensive investment kind of business. It costs a lot,
Mm,
but
mm,
as things become much more cloud driven,
yeah.
it's all becoming a bit more scalable. It's all becoming a little bit more real.
Yeah.
Automation and robotics are starting to become more normal, and I think
Mm,
that's a huge importance for us to, I expect there'll be more automation at the airport, from more biometric boarding in more places, to freeing up the process, from humans to more kind of robots for some of the baggage handling and all those different things. Because it's a great opportunity to do it. I mean, I've seen
mm,
some of the collaborations of like future airports out in Singapore where they're designing these kind of frictionless free experiences. And I'm the first one to think, how do I get that?
Yeah, I know. It
uh,
looks amazing. When can I go? Yeah.
yeah, how do I where do I need to fly to
Yeah.
to have that
I want
experience?
to try it.
And
Yeah.
I can, I can say that having flown this morning into London on a
Yeah.
7 a.m. flight,
Oh,
if I could make that much much more friction free, I would
absolutely.
I would. So I think, kind of to wrap up and where I see it going, I think we just continue on the path of improvement. We're going to continue to see um, scalable improvements that we can lead
Mm,
in for the customers, and that ultimately will continue to ensure that our businesses remain sustainably profitable.
amazing.
Because I think travel, aviation is critical to global economies, and I think it's super important that we not necessarily protect it, but we ensure that it's going to be here for the long term.
Absolutely. And really, really learning those lessons from COVID, holding, physically seeing people, holding people, it's intrinsic to not only businesses, but just us as humans. We need to be
Abs-
in the same place.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I often say is the business that I'm in is, travel, and you get great things on holidays, but
Mm,
it's exactly that. It's connections. It's about keeping families in
yeah.
touch with each other. It's about exploring the world,
Yeah.
making that world a little bit smaller so we can understand not just all of our differences, but actually thrive on understanding those differences. And so it's humanistic in its nature, and it has a much broader part to play than just the getting people from A to B. It's what that actually
Absolutely.
represents
I
and
love
what that
the
means.
theological debates. We could go on down that route. That's for another podcast, but I love it. We need to revisit
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely. So we mentioned a little bit about diversification within the industry, and we've been so privileged that in Pod Leaders we have had some wonderful male and female leaders within the industry come on, real male advocates as well for female leadership, which has been wonderful to be a part of. So yourself as a female leader, we would have gone through lots of different twists and turns, but how do you do it? How do you do it all? How do you balance it all?
With great difficulty, I would say. No, I think I had no idea about the gender balances and anything like that when I
Yeah,
decided, back in, I had that career riser moment. I decided I wanted to work in holiday. So I didn't ever think that there would be a reason that I couldn't.
yeah.
I just didn't, as I navigated through, I realized it was quite lonely actually, because
Mm,
especially navigating a leadership path, there wasn't many people that looked like me. There wasn't many women in the roles as I was growing up in the industry.
yeah.
So I think there's a couple of things that I've done personally, and also been luckily supported by the businesses that I've worked for to try and maintain this kind of momentum. And I think a super important part of working in this business is finding supportive mentors. I think people that you can trust,
Yeah.
that can share their wisdom, not just open doors, but also can really provide um, improvements for you to think about beyond the possible, is
Mm,
great. And also, outside of mentorship, having a trusted panel of advisors.
mm,
I've established that throughout my career with just people that I've worked with, people that I have had affinity with, and just kind of created that kind of core sounding board. And
mm.
they're from various backgrounds and industries. And it also includes friends and family. My husband is one of the best ones because
That's
he doesn't know
great.
anything about aviation, but he
He's on your
understands.
board.
He's
Yeah.
on my board because he's not there to understand whether he knows the decisions or the, like, should I do this or that from a commercial perspective, but he's there to
Mm,
think about the other side of that. And having that safe space for feedback, and definitely with the situations that I've been through in my career, having people advocating for you is
mm,
super important. I've got that in many different ways, and I thank everyone who's been part of my journey for their support. And then outside of that, you always feel lonely if you're not in a room of people doing and facing the same challenges as you. So, as I say, after being in the industry for almost 20 years, I started to think about what would that be like if I was starting my career today, and how would I have got to where I've got to? And recognizing that there is more that we could do, I've kind of reached out and wanted to give back a little bit in some of the spaces I think need our focus and energy. Specifically, as a transformation person, naturally just getting things done is kind of in my DNA.
Mm,
So over the last year or so, I've been more heavily involved in the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Charter Board,
mm.
and I'm working on their European expansion program to kind of take that from the UK to some of the wider locations. I also
Really
contribute
want to
to.
learn more about that, by the way.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah.
Because do you know what? You could probably do another podcast with Samati and Victoria, who are the actual founders and chairs of that
I would
board. That would
love
be.
that.
I can definitely connect you on that one.
Brilliant. Thank
Just
you.
cut this bit out of the video.
Yeah.
So I'm involved, as I said, with the Women in
Yeah.
Aviation and Aerospace Charter Board. I also contribute now for the Tech Women for Boards because I
Brilliant.
think the change that we want to see needs to start in the places where the decisions are being
Yes.
made.
100%.
And
It's the
I just,
second stage. Yeah.
absolutely finding a place for collectively working and in helping to level up women in the industry is awesome.
Mm.
And besides that, I look after. You need a safe space for yourself. So in Barcelona, I'm part of a netball club,
Ah, cool. Yeah.
and and netball's not even played in Spain. So can you imagine what that's like?
Niche.
It's super niche, but these spaces are where I can share with that network that you're not alone, especially when you move to a different country. You know, you need that support. So
Totally.
my advice really is to make sure that you build whatever you need to help
Yeah.
you be resilient. So for me, the netball is great because that's activating different sides
Yeah.
of the stress that you're under. And I think I keep going in this industry because of the passion. I've talked
Yeah.
about it throughout today. Um, I love travel, and I think that fuels my resilience because when things
Yeah.
get tough, I just think about what I'm doing. And I've really learned to be pragmatic as well through this process.
Mm.
And I really, as you get a bit older, you start to really understand what's important. And my advice is for people to trust themselves. You kind of get that feeling that what is for you, and
Mm.
take that control and follow what's right for you, even if it means doing something completely crazy like moving to Spain without speaking Spanish.
I just
Um,
think that's wonderful. Just go
yeah,
for it.
exactly.
Go for it.
You'll only regret the things that you don't do, and
Yeah.
you'll learn from everything you try.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's
We need that on a t-shirt. Absolutely.
so, whatever it is for you, as I've said before, is never going to be against you. So I think the path that you take, it might be different to what you expected. You might find things about yourself that you didn't know,
Yeah.
but nothing will be wasted.
Love it.
So
Love it.
just try.
So find your ever expanding village, but keep
Exactly.
your board tight.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Thank you, Veronica. My word, what an awesome podcast. This is absolute gold. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've just got a few quick fire questions, Veronica, which I haven't prepared you on, but
It's
I
okay.
wanted to just so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better as a person. So, if you are found of an evening, are you in the disco or at the restaurant?
I mean, I live in Spain, so
Mm,
we start late at the restaurant and then we end always at the disco.
always at the disco.
Always at the disco.
Amazing. Amazing. And this could be a good one. What kind of food is your favourite? What's your go-to?
Oh, I am very eclectic, although my husband would say I'm very childlike in my comfort zone. So, but my absolute favourite thing is my mum's macaroni cheese.
Oh,
She
delicious.
makes phenomenal. She makes it to order now. Whenever my friends come over, they're always asking to have a try. But that is my go-to in terms of
Amazing.
something that is probably
Delicious.
not the best for me, but
Oh
it
no.
has so many memories in it that it just brings me to that place.
Just a massive cuddle. I love it. Always very interesting to speak to my airline and travel people within this. But where's your favourite place? Where have you your favourite holiday
Ah.
destination?
I mean, I feel like you have to have categories for this,
Yeah, I
especially in
know it's really
aviation. It's
tricky,
like,
isn't
have I only got this amount of time? Have I got that amount of time? Am I
it?
going long haul? Am I going short haul? I've always had a soft spot for San Francisco. I just love the diversity that
Wow,
that
yeah.
has, and that's one of the places. And it's very close to a wine country as well.
Happy days.
But you know what? I think travel and going places is actually what I like the best. I
Yeah.
actually like the airport. I like the planes. I like to be in that space. That's
That
the bit
makes
I
me
like.
happy.
Um, I know, aviation geek right here, but
I just like, no, it's like having that personal passion makes people who they are, right? Like,
exactly.
and aren't we lucky to work in something that we love?
Every day I get to the airport and I look, and even today I came into Gatwick, I saw
Yeah.
the planes lined up. I looked to my husband and went, I just love planes.
Just love
I
playing.
just love them. Like they're just the way that they do what they do, get you from
Yeah,
A to B. When you wake up in one place, all of that kind of stuff. I just
so
love
good.
planes.
So good. And our final closing question, which is always fun. If you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, I would definitely want to stop time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I just
Okay.
think there's not enough time to do everything I want to do.
Yeah.
So often I watch, Harry Potter, where she's got her
I
time
was going to
turner
say,
and
you
she
need
can,
one of those Twizzler things.
yeah. So I can fit it all in, and
Yeah.
people that know me as well, they're like, she's always doing this, she's always running from there, going from
Yeah.
there to here, because I just want to experience it all.
Yeah.
So definitely looking forward to being able to stop time in the future and uh,
Amazing.
and experience things again as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. 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 Just really love those memories. That's good. That's good. Well, Veronica, thank you so much. This has been one of my favourite podcasts, I must say. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time. I know our listeners will absolutely love it. And I really
Fantastic.
hope that we can catch a glass of wine at a conference sometime soon and
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm on the circuit. I'm definitely going to be in September, T2RL
you
in
two are
London.
brilliant.
So
So
if
I
you're
hope
going to
you
be
will
there,
pass as
hopefully we'll
well.
see you there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No
Cheers.
problem. Take care, guys. Bye.